Welcome to the Fall 2020 Ladies Big Book Study Recording Series. My name is Kimberly and I am a recovered alcoholic. I am the facilitator of a tri-weekly Big Book Study for ladies only, and we record each session so we can share the knowledge along with you. What we do is we read the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous line by line. We pause on each page and have discussion time to share our experience, our strength, and our hope on each page. You are more than welcome to follow along in this series and do the work of the steps of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. If you do need support at any time, please reach out to me in the Contact Us area of my YouTube channel, and we're happy to provide you with support. The online recordings are open to men and women. Do not be discouraged, gentlemen. Our ladies' point of view may offer you a different perspective. So welcome. I hope you enjoy. All right, so we are continuing on page 37. Again, and just a quick reminder that this is a line by line, and my name is still Kimberly, and I am still an alcoholic. And what we do is we read line by line, and then we pause and discuss as need be as we go along. Please use your little blue hand in the participant menu if you have anything to add to the conversation or if you have any questions that need to be clarified. Goes a little bit like this. Whatever the precise definition of the word may be, we call this plain insanity. How can such a lack of proportion of the ability to think straight be called anything else? You may think this is an extreme case. To us, it is not far-fetched, for this kind of thinking has been characteristic of every single one of us. We sometimes have reflected more than Jim did upon the consequences, but there was always the curious mental phenomenon that, parallel with our sound reasoning, there inevitably ran some insanely trivial excuse for taking the first drink. Our sound reasoning failed to hold us in check. The insane idea won out. The next day we would ask ourselves in all earnestness and sincerity how it could have happened. In some circumstances, we have gone out deliberately to get drunk, feeling ourselves justified by nervousness, anger, worry, depression, jealousy, or the like. But even in this type of beginning, we are obliged to admit that our justification for a spree was insanely insufficient in the light of what always happened. We now see that when we began to drink deliberately instead of casually, there was little serious or effective thought during the period of premeditation of what the terrific consequences might be. So again, we're referring to Jim, our friend who liked to enjoy whiskey and milk with a sandwich on the side, and the insane thoughts that prevailed in his mind. And that's all it is. And it says insanity or insane 3 times in 2 paragraphs. So we're hitting home the mental twist that happens where we tell ourselves, it's okay. It's a sandwich. It's okay. It's in milk. It's okay, I don't have a crappy husband anymore. It's okay, I have a nice home and no bills to pay. It's not. It's an insane idea, and we need to have that first defense against that insane idea, which comes from the spiritual course of action and a reliance upon our higher power. And then we want to talk about, and I've talked about it before, that good old saying, we'll play out the tape. I can't play out the tape. If someone tells you that advice, tell them to beat it with a stick. Because the problem with our disease is we can't play out the tape. We change the tape. Our crazy, insane ideas come into mind and we convince ourselves something different is going to happen this time. Our sound reasoning fails to hold us in check. So playing out the tape is not going to work for us. I love this. In some circumstances, we have gone out deliberately to get drunk. And it lists some reasons we go out deliberately. Nervousness. Yep. Anger. Oh yeah. I'm going to drink this poison and I'm going to punish you, don't you know? How many times have I drank myself in anger, right? I'm drinking at you. Is it affecting you? No. Is it ruining me? Yeah. Worry, depression, jealousy, all reasons that we've had for drinking. That's drinking at a problem. It doesn't solve the problem whatsoever. I always found when I drank deliberately, the result was worse than when I drank by some strange delusion of mind. Drinking in anger always wound up to be an even worse debacle than before. Anyone want to comment on those 3 paragraphs? Experience? Stella?
Good morning, ladies. Stella, alcoholic. Yes, I drank for those reasons, but I also drank to celebrate. I also drank because I did a good job. I also drank because I felt like it. Like it didn't, it came to that point where I didn't need a reason. Did not need a reason. But yeah, when we, or just to forget. Plain and simple, right? Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Stella. Yeah, those happy drinking occasions, they started out way better than the ones where you drank in anger. Anger almost took me out, and then my phone rang. Kelly!
Hey, Kimberly. Hi, everybody. My name is Kelly. I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict, and I'm just glad I'm here in the seat, in the place to be. So I remember, catching my boyfriend having, having fun, I should say, or having, sex with this other girl, and he was cheating on me. Oh man, that was a bad night. I went to the 24-hour store and got myself a big banana, this big, and I decided to, drink, do drugs, and shove that banana up his tailpipe. My arm was all black, and he made it home. I was really upset, but my whole day was twisted the next day, and I remember swearing off, I'll never do it again. And then I was depressed with more worry, and then I had to go and drink and get more stuff and then more sedatives and everything else to deal with it. And he was an alcoholic like myself, so it's just crazy the thinking. Drink the poison, hope they die. He didn't die. He's still out there, and he actually works at a gas station now, and he's 50. But anyway, gotta love us alcoholics. But I'm glad I'm here and I'm sober, and I never want to be Jim, and I never want to go back to that girl. So thanks, Kim. Thanks for being here today, everybody.
Thanks so much. Bonnie T.
Thanks, Kim. My name's Bonnie. I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, I used to even drink just when things were just kind of going well in the day. I was just such a drama queen. Still have a little bit of that in me, but I was very much a drama queen. And if things were just rolling along really nicely, I would always shake it up. And drink was, certainly a way to do that. Anyways, that's all I've got. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. All right, ladies, so sorry about that interruption. This is now a re-record. Our behavior is absurd and incomprehensible with respect to the first drink, as that of an individual with a passion, say, for jaywalking. He gets a thrill out of skipping in front of fast-moving vehicles. He enjoys himself for a few years in spite of friendly warnings. Up to this point, you would label him as a foolish chap, having queer ideas of fun. Luck then deserts him, and he is slightly injured several times in succession. You would expect him, if he were normal, to cut it out. Presently, he is hit again, and this time has a fractured skull. Within a week after leaving the hospital, a fast-moving trolley car breaks his arm. He tells you he has decided to stop jaywalking for good, but in a few weeks, he breaks both legs. On through the years, this conduct continues, accompanied by his continual promises to be careful or to keep off the streets altogether. Finally, he can no longer work, his wife gets a divorce, and he is held up to ridicule. He tries every known means to get the jaywalking idea out of his head. He shuts himself up in an asylum hoping to mend his ways, but the day he comes out, he races in front of a fire engine, which breaks his back. Such a man would be crazy, wouldn't he? You think our illustration is too ridiculous, but is it? We who have been through the ringer have to admit that if we substituted alcoholism for jaywalking, the illustration would fit us exactly. However intelligent we may have been in other respects where alcohol was involved, we had been strangely insane. It's strong language, but isn't it true? Some of you are thinking, yes, what you tell us is true, but it doesn't fully apply. We admit we have some of these symptoms, but we have not gone to the lengths that the extremes that you fellows did, nor are we likely to. For we understand ourselves so well after what you have told us that such things cannot happen again. We have not lost everything in life through drinking, and we certainly do not intend to. Thanks for the information. That may be true of certain non-alcoholic people who, though drinking foolishly and heavily at the present time, are able to stop or moderate because their brains and bodies have not been damaged as ours were. But the actual or potential alcoholic, with hardly an exception, will be absolutely unable to stop drinking on the basis of self-knowledge. This is a point we wish to emphasize and re-emphasize, to smash home to our alcoholic readers as it has been revealed to us out of bitter experience. Let us take another illustration. So here we have the story of the jaywalker, and the jaywalker story seems to be very outrageous, but if you compare it to your alcoholism, and as I like to do with women in Alcoholics Anonymous, we can also look at it as women that stay in domestic violence relationships, is that illustration fits perfectly. If we look at our drinking careers, we go on a first few times drinking and everything is fine. We think everything is great. We may make a fool of ourselves once in a while, but we chalk it up to just drinking. And then as our drinking continues, we start to do more injurious things. And then it gets to the point where we get to that place of incomprehensible demoralization. So every time our drinking bouts happen, it gets worse and worse. And there we go. We have that illustration of the jaywalker. Now, if you go down and you think that illustration is too ridiculous, maybe you haven't got to that place of incomprehensible demoralization. What maybe you haven't had some of the experiences some of us have had. Maybe you're not far down the scale, but what the jaywalker illustrates is that the longer we continue, the more the injury becomes worse. So, you might be halfway down the slippery slope. You don't need to go all the way to the bottom of the hill and land in that pile of mud in order to quit drinking. And then, of course, that self-knowledge we talked about. Self-knowledge cannot save us if we are alcoholic. It works great for people who are normal, but if we are alcoholic, it doesn't work for us. Now, it says here, you don't have to be absolutely 100% the real alcoholic. It says the actual or potential alcoholic, with hardly an exception, will be able to stop on basis of self-knowledge. So you can stop using our program of action even if you haven't hit the same extreme bottoms as other people. You don't have to bottom out in Alcoholics Anonymous in order to recover. You can be a potential alcoholic with the tendencies, knowing that this is the end result if you keep going on the way you're going. And the point of that is we don't have to hit below bottom. I've hit rock bottom a few times, and then the bottom kept getting lower. And I know that that's a characteristic that's similar with a lot of women that I've talked to. I thought I hit rock bottom, then I went back out, and I hit a worse bottom. The bottom just keeps getting lower. You don't actually typically ever bottom out until you die. So we don't have to get there. Let's take another illustration, and this is my favorite illustration in the entire book, our friend Fred. Fred is a partner in a well-known accounting firm. His income is good. Has a fine home. He's happily married and the father of promising children of college age. He has so attractive a personality that he makes friends with everyone. If ever there was a successful businessman, it is Fred. To all appearance, he is a stable, well-balanced individual, yet he is alcoholic. We first saw Fred about a year ago in a hospital where he had gone to recover from a bad case of jitters. It was his first experience of this kind, and he was much ashamed of it. Far from admitting he was an alcoholic, he told himself he came to the hospital to rest his nerves. The doctor intimated strongly that he might be worse than he realized. For a few days he was depressed about his condition. He had made up his mind to quit drinking altogether. It never occurred to him that perhaps he could not do so, in spite of his character and standing. Fred would not believe himself an alcoholic, much less accept a spiritual remedy for his problem. We told him what we knew of alcoholism. He was interested and conceded he had some of the symptoms, but he was a long way from admitting he could do nothing about it himself. He was positive that his humiliating experience plus the knowledge he had acquired would keep him sober the rest of his life. Self-knowledge would fix it. Gotta love Fred. Now, in all intents and purposes, in that first paragraph, Fred seems like he's a normal person. You know, he's got a good family, he's got a good job, he has a fine home, he's got promising children, he has such a great personality, he was a successful businessman. To all appearances, and there we go, appearances, he was a successful, stable, well-balanced individual. Yet, he is alcoholic. So he was far from admitting it himself. He ended up in the hospital after a drinking bout, and he convinced himself and the doctor that he was just there to rest his nerves. Been there, done that. I'm just depressed. I've humiliated myself, but because of this experience and what you've told me, I'm not going to ever do it again. I do not want to ever lose my standing in the community. I do not ever want to be humiliated like that again. So I am going to quit drinking. And I am not like you guys. I am a man of high standing and high character. So Fred thought himself better than the members of Alcoholics Anonymous that came to him. So he would not believe himself an alcoholic, and he would not accept a spiritual remedy for his problem. He was positive that his humiliating experience, which is fear and self-knowledge, would fix him. And plus, he feels he's better than. So he's got self-will, self-knowledge, and fear. And we've learned from Bill's story that those don't work well. So let's hear what happens to Fred. We heard no more of Fred for a while. One day, we were told that he was back in the hospital. This time, he was quite shaky. We're on page 40, by the way, if you're following along in Lost. He soon indicated he was anxious to see us. The story he told is most instructive. For here was a chap absolutely convinced he had to stop drinking, who had no excuse for drinking, who exhibited splendid judgment and determination in all of his other concerns, yet was flat on his back nevertheless. Let him tell you about it. I was much impressed with what you fellows said about alcoholism, and I frankly did not believe it would be possible for me to drink again. I rather appreciated your ideas about the subtle insanity which precedes the first drink, but I was confident it wouldn't happen to me after what I had learned. The reason I was not so far advanced as most of you fellows. I had been usually successful in licking my other personal problems, and that I therefore would be successful where you men failed. I felt I had every right to be self-confident, and that it would only be a matter of exercising my willpower and keeping on guard. Haha, silly man Fred is. So in here we hear a lot of different things. We hear some inconsistencies from Fred. He is a chap that knew he had to stop drinking, and who says he has no excuse for drinking. Yet that story is coming apart and unraveling. His perfect life is starting not to sound so perfect. He says in the next paragraph that he had been successful licking his other personal problems. Why, Fred, what are these personal problems you've been successful in getting over? I thought your life was perfect. I thought you had no excuse for drinking. Personal problems tend to be a really good excuse for drinking. So his story's falling apart. He appreciated the ideas about the subtle insanity which preceded the first drink, but obviously he didn't give it that much credit because he did concede to drink again. And of course, there he says again, he thought he wasn't so far advanced as the others, and he thought he would be more successful where other men failed. So he thought himself better than the alcoholics, and he thought his self-will, his self-knowledge, and fear would make him able to overcome this disease where other men had failed. And we hear that a lot in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, where people compare and contrast. Or they, like I said, think themselves not so far advanced, and therefore they're going to be able to stop on their own fruition, which we hear time and time again, because these people keep coming back, that is not the case. So, even if you have not hit rock bottom, even if you have not developed the allergy as strong as other people may have had, even if you are not a morning drinker and you only drink at evening, or you only drink on weekends and you don't drink during the day, like there is so many of these lurking notions and reservations that we have that make us feel like we are not alcoholic, or we are not so far advanced as you people, so we are going to be able to do this successfully. And that there comes that problem where people are like, well, you're not a real alcoholic. You're just a heavy binge drinker. You're just escaping consequences. We don't judge someone else's alcoholism. This is a self-diagnosed disease. If someone isn't so far advanced, that doesn't mean they can't stop now and save themselves the torture. They just have to admit they're alcoholic. And they have to accept a spiritual course of action. And they do not have to bottom out repeatedly. Let's hear more about Fred. In this frame of mind, I went about my business. For a time, all was well. I had no trouble refusing drinks, and began to wonder if I had not been making too hard work of a simple matter. One day I went to Washington to present some accounting advice to a government bureau. I had been out of town before during this particular dry spell, so there was nothing new about that. Physically, I felt fine. Neither did I have any pressing problems or worries. My business came off well, and I was pleased, and knew my partners would be too. It was the end of a perfect day, not a cloud on the horizon. Now, this is where some of my big book thumping counterparts may take you down a different course, but I disagree. People say, it was a perfect day, not a cloud on the horizon. This man had no reason to drink. Ha! I disagree. I see really good reasons to drink. He had a great frame of mind. His business was going well. He had had no trouble refusing drinks, so his guard was down. That's a really good reason there. He went to Washington, so he's out of town. I used to love drinking when I was out of town. He had he felt fine. If he has no pressing problems and he's physically feeling fine, he might think he's overcome this affliction. He's no longer stressed, depressed, and in the dumps, so he might be differently reacting to alcohol this time. He had, his business came off well. Now, there's another reason to drink. I did really good in my job today. Let's celebrate. Oh, and even more, his partners would be pleased with him. He's doing really good. I might as well take a drink. And my last one, my favorite one, it's a perfect day, not a cloud on the horizon. That's reason number 5 to drink. I used to love drinking on perfect days. No clouds in the sky, sitting on a patio, having a nice mimosa or something in the mid-afternoon. It's a great reason to drink. Well, let's see what happens to Fred. I went to my hotel and leisurely dressed for dinner. Oh, that, my friends, is called the subtle insanity of the first drink. Finding a reason in anything to drink. I went to my hotel room and leisurely dressed for dinner. As I crossed the threshold of the dining room, the thought came to mind that it would be nice to have a couple cocktails with dinner. That was all. Nothing more. I ordered a cocktail in my meal. Then I ordered another cocktail. After dinner, I decided to take a walk. When I returned to the hotel, it struck me a highball would be fine before going to bed. So I stepped into the bar and I had one. I remembered having several more that night and plenty the next morning. I have a shadowy recollection of being in an airplane bound for New York and of finding a friendly taxi cab driver at the landing field instead of my wife. The driver escorted me about for several days. I know little of where I went or what I said and did. Then came the hospital with the unbearable mental and physical suffering. As soon as I regained my ability to think, I went carefully over that evening in Washington. Not only had I been off guard, I had made no fight whatever against the first drink. This time I had not thought of the consequences at all. I had commenced to drink as carelessly as though the cocktails were ginger ale. I now remembered what my alcoholic friends had told me, how they prophesied that if I had an alcoholic mind, the time and place would come. I would drink again. They had said that though I did raise a defense, it would one day give way before some trivial reason for having the drink. Well, that just did happen, and more, for what I had learned of alcoholism did not occur to me at all. I knew from that moment I had an alcoholic mind. I saw that willpower and self-knowledge would not help in those strange mental blank spots. I had never been able to understand people who said that a problem had them hopelessly defeated. I knew then it was a crushing blow. So of the two symptoms of alcoholism, which is the one that causes us to relapse? The malady of the mind. That bizarre mental twist that tells us we do not have a disease and it's going to be different this time. Here in Fred's story, he did not have the allergy causing him to relapse. It was the malady of the mind, the mental affliction we suffer from, where he had that thought that came to mind that it would be nice to have a couple of cocktails with dinner. Now, if you remember Bill's story, Bill too had that same thought. So even though you are recovered from alcoholism, those thoughts do not go away. But what changes is the reaction to those thoughts. This gentleman was still suffering from alcoholism, so Fred did the opposite of Bill. Fred went into the bar and had a drink, thereby setting off the allergy, which caused him to drink for the next several days. Bill had a solution. So while the thought came to Bill's mind to have a drink in the bar at the hotel when he was visiting on business, which went terribly wrong, Bill walked down the hallway, picked up the phone, and found another alcoholic to work with, because he was no longer suffering from alcoholism. He had recovered. He still dealt with depression, but he had a solution. Here, Fred did not. Fred goes on a spree and sets off the allergy and couldn't stop for several days. He was off guard. He had made no fight against the first drink. He hadn't thought of the consequences at all. So self-will, self-knowledge, and fear didn't help him. And that prophecy, if you have an alcoholic mind, you will drink again if you do not have a solution in your life. I see it all the time. We hear it all the time. And of course, he talks again and reaffirms that willpower and self-knowledge would not help in these situations. He was hopelessly defeated. 2 of the members of Alcoholics Anonymous came to see me. They grinned, which I didn't like so much, and then asked me if I thought myself alcoholic and if I were really licked this time. I had to concede both propositions. They piled on me heaps of evidence to the effect that an alcoholic mentality such as I exhibited in Washington was a hopeless condition. They cited cases out of their own experience by the dozen. This process snuffed out the last flicker of conviction that I could do the job myself. So there they did steps 1, 2, and 3. He conceded he was a real alcoholic, and then they piled on him heaps of evidence. So that is like us when we read chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4 and the doctor's opinion. We tell you what you need to know about alcoholism. We get you to concede that you are an alcoholic, and then we show you the spiritual way through step 2 and 3. Then we go on. They then outlined the spiritual answer and a program of action which 100 of them had followed successfully. Though I had been only a nominal churchman, their proposals were not intellectually hard to swallow, but the program of action, though entirely sensible, was pretty drastic. It meant I would have to throw lifelong conceptions out the window. That was not easy. But the moment I made up my mind to go through with the process, I had the curious feeling that my alcoholic condition was relieved, as in fact it proved to be. So here he's been given the solution. He's made his beginning. Did he do all of the work right then and there? No. He was shown step 1. He conceded he was an alcoholic and was defeated. And then he was outlined steps 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. He was done. He had been shown the steps, and what he did after that was then he went and did it. So here we are. We are doing a set of steps. You are learning what they are. Does that mean you are done? No, that means you've made a beginning. Then what do? You go and do the work. That is what Fred does at this point. Quite as important was the discovery that spiritual principles would solve all my problems. Whoa. I thought acceptance was the answer to all my problems today. No! Spiritual solutions. Spiritual principles, a belief in a higher power, reliance upon God. That is the solution to all my problems today. I have since been brought into a way of living, infinitely more satisfying and I hope more useful than the life I lived before. My old manner of life was by no means a bad one, but I would not exchange its best moments for the worst I have now. I would not go back to it even if I could. So he made a beginning. He learned what the steps were, and then he went and he applied this design for living to his life. It is a way of living. We practice these principles in all of our affairs. Fred's story speaks for itself. We hope it strikes home to thousands like him. He had felt only the first nip of the ringer. Most alcoholics have to be pretty badly mangled before they really commence to solve their problems. Many doctors and psychiatrists agree with our conclusions. One of these men, staff member of a world-renowned hospital, recently made this statement to some of us. What you say about the general hopelessness of the average alcoholic's plight is, in my opinion, correct. As to 2 of you men whose stories I have heard, there is no doubt in my mind that you were 100% hopeless apart from divine help. Had you offered yourselves as patients at this hospital, I would not have taken you. If I had been able to avoid it. People like you are too heartbreaking. Though not a religious person, I have profound respect for the spiritual approach in cases such as yours. For most cases, there is virtually no other solution. Once more, the alcoholic at certain times has no effective mental defense against the first drink, except in a few rare cases, neither he nor any other human being can provide such a defense. His defense must come from a higher power. So here it talks about Fred not having to bottom out. Fred did not have to hit the hardest bit of the bottom. He only had the first nip of the ringer. He knew he was alcoholic. He knew he had that mental malady. And it says here, you don't have to be badly mangled before you commence to solve their problems. You don't. You do not have to hit rock bottom in order to solve your problems. You just have to concede to your innermost self that you're an alcoholic and you cannot drink safely, that you've lost the ability to control. The alcoholic at certain times has no effective mental defense against that first drink, except in few rare cases. Neither he nor any other human being can provide such a defense. Your sponsor is not your defense against the first drink. Your sponsor is meant to show you how to make this relationship with a higher power, which is your first defense. Your sponsor cannot be relied upon you to save you. Your sponsor is here to show you the spiritual course of action and how to apply it to your life. They are not the defense against the first drink. That defense must come from a higher power. This program is meant to connect you to such power and give you a design of living that keeps you connected to that power. We'll see you guys next time.